I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Rockdale Planning and Zoning meeting of Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Could we have a roll call, please?
Chair Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Miles.
Here.
Commissioner Ratliff.
Here.
Commissioner Willie.
Here.
And Commissioner Barczyk.
Here.
And Council Starnes.
We have a quorum. Please stand as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. As we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tim, I didn't ask, did you? Okay. Remain standing if you want to.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day, for the sunshine that we're receiving. Lord, please be with the members of the commission this afternoon and guide their decision and their voices, that all of that might be pleasing to you. Lord, we ask for blessings on the city of Rockdale and watch over all of our families and keep them safe and close to you. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let the record show that we had invocation by Tim Kelty. Do we have any citizens' communications? Thank you, ma'am. Before we go on record, is it Casares? Or how do you?
Casares, Casares, Casares.
Well, that's what was cute.
I don't care what you call me, just call me.
Mr. Mario Casares, please go to the podium.
Mr. Chair, could I approach and hand out some handouts?
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, my name is Mario Casares. I'm the director of Rockdale Housing Authority. I should have been here today regarding zoning, but I'm a little late. To be quite honest, I was trying to pull the cart before the horse, and I'm working on a grant. So I got behind on what we want to do at Rockdale Housing. That first one with the green is what we started to do with Light Tech. Our consultant said we did not qualify for a 4% or 9% Light Tech, so that was out. Now we're trying for a USDA loan. It's the second one. And the third one is a $15 million grant I applied for HUD. So I'm here. When I approach our next month, I just want the board to know this is what's going on at Rockdale, and we're going to need some help from y'all guys. I spoke to the city council last year, I believe, to tell y'all what we were trying to do. So I'm back here. I know I got to go to zoning prior to the council. Rockdale's going to ask the board for R3 zoning, PUD zoning. We want the minimum size of these apartments, studios, to be 440 square feet, not 600 square feet. We're going to ask for one parking space per unit, not two, with drives of 25 foot wide. And that's what we're going to ask for zoning next month. And we may come before the city council. We're also asking the council, mentioning y'all could help with our street paving or any kind of infrastructure. But right now, before the planning and zoning, I just want y'all to know I will be here next week asking for that zoning so we can commence our studios. We have two loans going on, a USDA loan. We're going to start 36 homes. I've been busy with the amendments of the HUD grant, which is $15 million, which the grant is what we want. It's not guaranteed. I should know by this month or November, if we get that $15 million grant from HUD. That will be for 62 and over elderly housing specifically, if that grant is given to us. If we go USDA, it's 55 and over. Is there any questions from board members here what we're trying to do at Rockdale Housing?
Which one is 55 and over?
The USDA, that's one way we tried. We tried several ways, and we're not giving up. If we don't get the grant or get the USDA loan, we're going to wind up selling our 4-acre tract of land out there, the old San Gabriel mobile home park. That's where we're at now. So before I come next month, will there be any questions? I believe Ben said I have to submit that by October 14th. And do we put that in the paper, or y'all do that for us, Ben? We do all that. Okay, thank you. So I will be back November the 5th asking for that zoning change. I have spoken to some neighbors. I will go back and speak to other neighbors. Carolyn Cooper with the senior citizens on board. We do plan, if you look at on having a senior conference center, working with Carolyn Cooper as well. If we get the grant, we're going to have a waiting pool for our seniors for rehab and things of that nature. So we're planning big things, and we're just waiting on HUD to let us know. If not, we're going to go with a USDA loan.
I don't think I can ask questions on citizens' communications.
Okay.
Yeah, come back and see us.
So we'll see y'all next month. No other questions?
You can't ask clarification, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
You said if you get the grant alone, I didn't catch what you said after that.
well, we started with the USDA loan, Mr. Miles, and
That's the 55 and over, right?
yes. Then a HUD grant came out in May of this year. And so I said, well, let's try this. It was up to 20 million.
20, and how much was the USDA?
The USDA grant is for that's for 5 million. We'll build 36 units. Once we fill those up, we'll get money for another 36.
Gotcha.
Now, if HUD tells me this month or November we got that grant for 15 million, that grant specifically is for 62 and older. We also plan to have the senior center as well with the waiting pool.
That part, you said the senior what?
Senior supportive housing, 62 and over.
Senior pool.
And again, I do apologize. I should have been here last month with this information, but that grant took up a lot of my time.
What's your calendar look like Thursday? In 2 weeks.
I can make it available
Thursday, Tuesday, in 2 weeks.
Tuesday in 2 weeks. That is, I don't,
14th?
Your suggestion for the plan unit development?
At our workshop meeting to have him come back and address us.
No, we would have to have notice. We wouldn't be able to act, you wouldn't be able to act on it at that meeting.
But Q&A or,
Discussion.
okay, all right.
what day was that, Mr. Chairman? Tuesday,
14th, right?
Yeah, I think it's the 14th.
15th?
8th, 15th.
Try it all from the top. What are you doing Tuesday, the 15th was gonna be my question.
Okay. I will make myself available at 1:30.
I can send you an
Okay.
email or invite.
Okay. Any more clarification, Mr. Miles, or
No, sir.
anyone else?
Thank you.
One quick,
Yes, sir.
15 million or 50 million? 15 or 50?
15 million for 76, 62 and older supportive housing apartments, studios.
That was under HUD, the HUD grant?
I will follow up. We'll be working with Sitcog in Belton. There's a requirement for this grant that after it's built, that we have supportive services for seniors. So Sitcog will come in and handle that part along with Carolyn Cooper with any support services. Department of Aging with the state will also come in and help us after everything's built. That's if we get the grant, guys. We got a lot of PHAs in the United States trying to get this money. And that's why I'm behind here. That grant was a big one, but it's submitted and we're just waiting right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mario.
That concludes citizens' communications. We have conduct a workshop regarding Chapter 212 of the Texas Local Government Code. I hope y'all got to at least page 492 on reading this.
Ink pad. Do you have the clicker, or are you just gonna control it yourself? Okay.
So chapter 212 is going to be probably the last chapter we have a workshop on in quite some time. This is the plating chapter. So this is what staff refers to when we get plat submittals.
Charlie.
So on that first, we're going to break it down by section. If you remember my last presentation, I give you what section it's in case you ever want to go back and review in more detail, because this is extremely shortened. If you had a chance to look at your link, I think the chapter is around 80 pages long if we would have printed it. I've condensed that 80 pages into 40 slides, roughly. And so bear with me. If you have questions, stop me, and I'll answer in greater detail if you need. So on the, let me go back. So the first section is going to be rules. All this section is telling you is after you hold a public hearing, you can adopt rules on how you handle subdivisions within your jurisdiction. The next section speaks on the extension of those rules for the ETJ. So as you're aware, we handle plating within the ETJ. State law defines what we can and can't do in the ETJ, which is on this next slide. So things that we cannot regulate is the use of a building, the bulk height or number of buildings on a tract, size of a building, number of units per acre, and then water and wastewater size, type, and method of construction. So on plating, we handle that portion, but state law does not allow us to have any requirements with that.
And this all goes through code enforcement, planning.
That's right.
Which window does it actually go through for you?
So this goes into the planning commission, and there's some future slides that you'll see how state law defines who's responsible for the approval methods. So in this section 4, plat required, it talks about if you're going to divide a tract into 2 or more tracts, you're required to have a plat. There is a caveat in that if you're dividing 2 tracts into pieces larger than 5 acres, then you're actually not required to have a plat as long as it has access to right-of-way. If you can think of the concept landlocking, you can't subdivide property and have one piece of property that can't get to any right-of-way. This section continued. When you record a plat, this is what the surveyor is responsible for. They have to describe that subdivision by meets and bounds. They locate it with a corner, or they use a monument, which you'll see in that language on a plat. If the next time we get one, if you want to read it, if you can picture a plat, there's a lot of small writing, usually in the top right corner. They're telling you where they start, and then they use minutes and seconds on how they're defining that plat. Now, the responsible for approving it, we have to refer to state law. And so if you can think of on our past discussions when we talked about that plats are ministerial, you'll see that concept happen in a lot of these sections where it says you can only approve it to these subject matters and nothing more. So the authority responsible for approval, if there is a planning commission, it's going to be your planning commission. If you don't have a planning commission, then it'll be your governing body. Or you can do how we do it, where we actually require approval from both bodies, so it come to planning commission and council. Recently, we changed that with short form subdivisions, where you are actually that final authority. You can actually delegate who approves. So there is a way where if we got so busy and you had short form subdivisions come in, you could actually delegate myself, Tim, or someone else to be the approval body for plats. And then on our decision, if we approve or disapprove a plat with comments, they can actually appeal to your board. And this section also says that on any circumstance, I can have you review it as well, or whoever you delegate to be that responsible party. This is the application for approval. So someone that desires approval must apply and file a copy of the plat with the planning commission or the governing body. We shall adopt and make available a list of the required documentation with the plat, which we actually do by ordinance. You're required to post it on your website upon adoption and maintain it there. So our list is in chapter 10. That's our subdivision regulations, and we break down each different type of plat and what those documents are required. And you'll see when we get later on in this slide what we can and cannot require. We're limited in what we can ask for. Now, this is, you've heard this as well from us over the years, is we have a 30-day shot clock for approval. And so that means on the submittal date, that timer starts when I sign that we've accepted that plat for review. And we have 30 days to get it to the planning commission and have either an approval with conditions, or a disapproval. And then if you have another governing body that looks at it, it extends another 30 days. So for example, it comes to you guys and you make your recommendation, new 30 days starts and it gets to council. If you exceed that 30 days, that plat is approved as is. This section gives you where a party can extend that 30 days, but how that works is the applicant has to request it. The municipality cannot request that for them, and then the municipality has to approve that request.
Can we request an
We-
extension?
We cannot.
Okay.
The only way that we could prevent an application from coming in is you actually adopt a submittal calendar, which we have, that gives that you can submit on this day, and it lists out when we have to do our notification requirements. If it's an incomplete submittal, then it does not count as an official submittal, and they get that plat back to where they have to upload all those documents that are required.
Okay.
And now, upon a plat approval, we have to endorse the plat with a certificate. It's signed by the presiding officer and attested by the secretary, which is in our case. In other communities' cases, it's the majority of the members of the authority. And so then again, this reiterates the 30 days that we have to approve that plat. And then we have to maintain records of all plats that come before us, whether they've been approved, denied, or approved upon any condition. And so this speaks on conditional approval or disapproval requirements. We must provide a written statement that lists all conditions for the reasons of conditional approval or disapproval. And each condition must be specified in writing and has to be directly related to the requirements under this subchapter, include a citation to any law or ordinance, and it cannot be arbitrary.
So under keeping these records, do we hard copy or is it all digital or?
We keep it hard copy, and so there's the county, of course, when a plat gets recorded, the county keeps a record. We also keep a log. So anytime we get any rezone request or plat in this instance, we have a log of the date that we received it, the action that planning commission took, and then the action that the council takes. We keep hard copy files of those plats and the recorded copies if they were recorded, for in case that we get asked for any open records request. And of course, because of state law. So after conditional approval or disapproval, the applicant may submit a written response that satisfies each condition. And then important here, we cannot put a deadline on that response. The authority responsible for approving may not request or require an applicant to waive a deadline. That speaks to your 30-day shot clock that I was referring to, that answers your question. And then now we get into the standards of approval. So this is what you're going to look at any time you get a plat. It must conform to your general plan of the municipality. It conforms to the extension of any infrastructure that's required. If a bond's required, it has to meet section 2120106, which is rare in our instance. I don't think you've seen that yet. And it conforms to any rules adopted in 212002. And the municipality may not approve a plat unless the plat and other documents have been prepared in a section that we'll see later. Standards of approval continued. The municipality responsible for approving plats may not require the dedication of land for future streets or alleys that is not intended by the owner, not included, funded, and approved in either a capital improvement plan adopted by the municipality or a similar plan adopted by the county in which the municipality is located in. This section continued again. The municipality that's responsible for approving plats may not refuse to review a plat or approve a plat if they fail to define a corridor, which is defined in the transportation code. If we fail to approve the plat that meets the requirements of this subchapter, the owner may bring action in district court in the county that is responsible. And then the municipality would be responsible for covering all attorney fees if we were to lose. And if they were to lose, then they would be responsible for covering our attorney fees. Now this gets into the dedication. Just because you approve a plat with the proposed dedication does not mean that the city has accepted that dedication. The applicant would have to move forward with the required paperwork for the city to actually accept that dedication. And then, of course, a disapproval of plat is considered that you're not gonna accept that dedication.
That dedication normally occurs after the infrastructure is.
Dedication is after. So if you can think of the order, usually you'll get a preliminary plat. If we think of the Cornerstone Development's a good one to use. They came in with a preliminary plat that tells you how they want their lots to lay out with where their water and sewer and drainage is gonna go. They then put that infrastructure in and dedicate that to the city after that. And so the city has to review that infrastructure that was put in, accept it, and then it's since dedicated. Now, section is 0115, which I referenced earlier. This is the certification regarding compliance with plat requirements.
Hang on. So, in the case of us abandoning an alleyway, that meant it was dedicated, not necessarily dedicated. It could have been just, back then, I guess as the city grew, they just put in a street. How did that work?
So on plats, there is right-of-way allocated for either alleyways, streets, depending on what that use is, that is since given to the city upon approval of that plat dedication. The city can then, what's the word I'm looking for? Get rid of that plat, abandon that plat, vacate it in the future if there's no utilities in it, where then the owners would get a public hearing. They'll decide if they want to purchase their portion of that alley. And then if they do, they come in with the plat, which they would combine that with their lot. So their lot would essentially widen typically.
So, like the Cornerstone, all the utilities and road and all that, it was dedicated to the city, so it's now our responsibility? Is that how that works? Like for maintenance or repairs or anything?
That's right. Unless there's a development agreement that would state otherwise, that's the typical. Once you put that in and you dedicate it to the city, it's city-owned and city-operated, and it's public right-of-way.
And they do all the initial work, but
That's right. They hire a developer that would put that in with their own money and then have the city review, approve, and accept it.
Inspect and all that good stuff?
Part of the process of our accepting it is we review to make sure that it was designed and constructed properly in accordance with our specifications.
and that's on the front end though.
Yes.
Okay.
This is all done before final plat.
Okay.
So everything gets reviewed, approved, and accepted, and then they'll come before with the final plat showing you what they have done, which then becomes an official record. So in this section, there's a certification regarding compliance with plat requirements. So upon approval, the municipal authority has to issue an applicant a certificate stating that the plat has been reviewed and approved. And then upon written request regarding the land, the municipality shall make the following determinations. They decide whether a plat is required under the subchapter, and if a plat is required, whether it has been prepared and whether it has been reviewed and approved. With that section continued, if a plat's determined not to be required, then we have to give them in writing what our determination is. We have to give it to them within 20 days. And then once we make that determination, we have no longer than 10 days to get that back to the applicant. Connection of utilities. There's more subsections that I didn't include, but it says except as provided by subsection C, D, and J, and to describe by subsection B may not serve or connect any land with water, sewer, gas, electricity, or other utility services unless the entity has been provided a certificate issued in the previous section that we mentioned. This subsection A applies to municipalities that provide water, sewer, electricity, gas, and other services. Municipalities owned or operated utility that provides any of the above services, a public utility that provides any of the above services, Water Supply or Sewer Service Corporation that's under Chapter 67 of the Water Code, a county that provides the services, and a special district or authority created by or under state law that provides the above services. Now we get into what the different types of plats are. So there is a plat that's called a vacating plat, and what that plat will do is, if you can picture, you got a plat that was recorded 5 years ago, and it subdivided the property into 2 lots. You can come in with a vacating plat as long as none of the lots have been sold, or if they've been sold, each owner will have to sign for it to vacate the plat to what it previously was.
Say it again, that's right.
So what a vacating plat will do is it reverts what you newly did with the replat back to the original plat, as long as you have all owners sign that they are okay with that plat vacation. You actually saw this recently, and I'll get into that section here, which is replatting without vacating of a plat. You did half of that work. So if you can think of Texas Street, when you saw the 2 lots, that was around 38 acres total. They came in with what's called a replat without vacating the preceding plat. And so what that does is you do not have to go back in and vacate a plat. You can replat on top of that, and it will be what takes over, as long as you meet the 3 requirements below. It has to be signed by all of the owners of that property. It has to be approved by the authority responsible for approving plats, and it does not amend or remove covenants or restrictions. Now, this section just talks about certain...
Did you keep minimizing the lettering as we go, or am I losing my vision?
No,
What's
this
happening
is
here?
this is when
You're
you
trying
try
to see if I'm awake or what?
You try to make it in though as small as you can. This section doesn't you'll most likely never see this section in action, to be quite honest with you. State law has a funny thing where they will give you a lot of parameters, and they'll say it only includes a very specific subject. And so on this line, if you look on the bottom, it's owned and used by a nonprofit corporation established to assist children in at-risk situations through volunteer and individualized attention. This section applies to them only. I put it in here in case you wanted to have that bit of knowledge, because it does piggyback off of that, but most likely you'll never see this apply under your jurisdiction. In addition to section 212.014, a replat without vacation or preceding plat must conform to the requirements of this section if the zoning limited to the property allows no more than 2 residential units per lot within the past 5 years, or any lot that was limited by deed restriction to residential use for no more than 2 units per lot. If a proposed replat described by this section requires a variance, a public hearing must be held by the commission. The notice for the publication for the public hearing has to be 15 days before the date of the hearing, and has to be published by newspaper, as well as notice has to go out to everyone within 200 feet. It's identical to a rezone request. If you can picture that, of how that notification requirements work, this is the same.
Those can be heard the same meeting, those public hearings can be.
Well, this is for platting only, if there's no rezone.
I mean, there's variance. This is for variance?
Variance on a plat. Mm-hmm.
You'd have a public hearing for a variance and a public hearing for a plat?
You don't have to have a public hearing for just a plat. And so in that notification requirement that happens, there is, like zoning, people can oppose to a plat when there's a variance involved. And so the way that that percentage would work is you have to take in accommodation the land area as well as streets and alleys. And then if 20% of the property owners within that 200 feet are against the plat, it takes 3/4 vote for approval by the commission and city council in our case. And then here's a key one: protests do not apply to the plat if it was not designated for single or duplex family residential use. Now into the next portion of the plat. There is what's called an amending plat, which an amending plat is something that fixes a minor mistake. So it'll give you, it corrects an error in a previous plat, it adds a course or distance, corrects an error indicates monumentation, things of that nature. Very minimal changes to a plat. You can come in with an amending plat to fix that change. And then in this section, it speaks about if you're going to change lot lines. So if you're going to correct an error in course of the distance of lot lines between two adjacent lots, both the owners have to join the application. Neither lot is abolished. The amendment does not attempt to remove covenants or restrictions, and the amendment does not have a material adverse effect on property rights. To relocate one or more lot lines between one or more adjacent lots, the owners of all lots must join the application. Again, the amendment does not attempt to remove recorded covenants or restrictions, and it does not increase the number of lots in a plat amendment. This gets into it even further. If you have one that has 6 or fewer lots in the subdivision in the preceding plat, it would result in that the changes cannot affect applicable zoning. It cannot change or attempt to remove covenants or restrictions, and the area covered by changes is located in an area that the Planning Commission or other appropriate entity has approved after a public hearing as a residential improvement area. And then if you want to replat one or more lots fronting an existing street, the owners of all lots must join in the application. Again, cannot remove covenants or restrictions. It does not increase number of lots. It does not recreate or require new streets. And then notice of public hearing is not required for amending plats. This gets into the conflict of interest. This state law defines, if you're on the approving body, what your interest is. If you meet any of these requirements, you must not vote upon that approval of that plat. So it says if you have an equitable or legal ownership interest with a fair market value of $2,500 or more, act as the developer of the tract, you own 10% or more of the voting stock or shares, or owns 10% or more of $5,000 or more of the fair market value of a business entity that has equitable or legal ownership interest in the tract with a fair market value of $2,500 or more, or act as a developer of the tract, or receives within a calendar year funds that exceed 10% of the person's gross income from the previous year. Before the vote, you have to abstain, and then if you commit an offense according to this section, it is a Class A misdemeanor. So after a public hearing, the municipality can adopt general plans or rules or ordinances concerning development plats. And so what a development plat is if you're not going to have a subdivision of the land, but you're going to have a major development on that land, they will submit what's called a development plat. It's a little bit different from a preliminary plat, so if I need to expand on that, if you have any questions, I can.
So Walmart was coming in, or Lowe's was coming in, and there was a single piece of property that they were going to be developing that would require a development plan.
That's right. If they're not going to subdivide the land, but a major development's coming in, they'll give you what's called a development plat. And so when they give you a development plat, the surveyor will have to show existing building or structures on that, any easements and right-of-ways on the surveyed property, and the dimensions of each street, sidewalk, alley, square, or park, or other part of property intended to be dedicated for any public use. The development cannot begin until the development plat is filed and approved by a municipality. And if a subdivision plat is required, then a development plat is not required. So it's one or the other. It's not going to be both. And then we are restricted on issuing permits within the ETJ, as well as for development plats. A permit may not be issued until the plat has been filed. We're also limited, which will be on a later slide, that we cannot issue permits in the ETJ as well if they're going to have platting action. So the approval of the development plat, the municipality shall endorse approval of the plat if it conforms again to the general rules and plans of the city and our infrastructure, and then any rules adopted under section 212.044 if that applies to us. And then again, the approval of the development plat is not considered an acceptance of any dedication. The formal acceptance would have to go through the proper process, similar to the plating action that we were speaking of earlier. And then this reiterates what I just said. We're limited within the ETJ. We really only handle their plating. We cannot enforce building code nor require building permits. And that is the end of the slideshow. So if you want to ask any specific questions about those sections to go deeper, I try to make it as short as possible because it's a very lengthy section.
So, this is dealing with the ETJ. Suppose you had a city that had a highway going through it and your city actually was 100 feet on each side of the highway and the ETJ begins immediately thereafter, right? So, you have to have access through the city portion to get to the ETJ. I don't know how all this comes together when we're,
So this isn't just for ETJ. It's for within your territorial limits and the ETJ. They just specifically put that in state law so that way cities know that they're responsible for that approval.
that clears the mud right there then.
So there's more rules regarding development within the city because of course they're going to have the plating action requirements that we just went over as well as building permit requirements and zoning requirements. ETJ is separated out where you only have authority over their plating action requirements. You cannot implement zoning restrictions upon them nor building codes because building permits are not required and we're hindered from state law from doing that.
So you'd never do a development plat in the ETJ, is that correct?
That's right. A development plat would not be in the ETJ. Development plat would only be within the city because essentially what they're doing is they're submitting that plat for building permits purposes.
That gets tricky, really.
Well, the odd thing that state law does is, as you saw in one of the sections, we're required to notify folks within 200 feet like a zone change if something has been approved. So there's two ways you have to do it. You're either required to have a public hearing where they can come speak on the plat, or you have to notify them after the plat is approved, which is an extremely odd thing to do because plats are what's called ministerial, so they necessarily don't really have a say, unless there's a variance involved. But if there's not a variance, state law ties the city's hands to say that you have to approve that plat if it meets all of your requirements.
And if there's a piece of property, if we own that strip along the highway, and there's development that's planned, and they want infrastructure, water and sewer, we would require that they be annexed, and then they would fall into that, unless they platted before they were annexed, and then can we require them to replat as part of the annexation? I would think that we could.
Typically the way that if it's up to current plating standards, then we couldn't require them to replat, but if it's done to previous standards. In the past, when people platted, if you ever seen a legal description that says it's lot 2 part of and lot 3 part of, what that means is they essentially divided that property in reference to a plat, and which is no longer plating standards. So now you actually have to designate that lot as block 1, lot 1A, if you're gonna do a replat. And so if someone came in with a development and they had that verbiage, it would show staff that it's not meeting current plating standards and they'd have to replat. There's a lot to plating, and this is just really the surface level of it, to be quite honest with you. But I try to make it as short as possible because it is a lot of information.
But they have the details.
Questions?
That's right. You do have the link. If you refer back to Shanna's email when she sent you the packet, that is the link to the section. If you get bored and you start reading late at night, you can give me a call the next morning, and we can discuss in great detail whatever you may have questions on.
Good job, Ben.
Questions? I'll accept your workshop, sir. Thank you.
Again.
Action items. A, review and approve the minutes from the meeting on September 3rd and 17th, 2024. That should be under the red tab and before the green tab.
Make a motion to approve the minutes, first day of October.
You have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of September 3rd and 17th, 2024. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion made, seconded, and carries. Received the monthly code enforcement report.
Okay. Now, if I will kindly remind the commission that we do go by fiscal year for code enforcement, so this means this is the last month in this fiscal year. So when you see the report in October, these will be fresh numbers. On the second page, you'll see the continuation that I was asked on when code enforcement started the proactive approach to code enforcement, which began in 2021 and is run through 2024 currently. So those numbers will remain. So you won't lose these numbers, but I just want to remind you that it will refresh next month. So in the numbers for the total of this fiscal year, we had 66 trash and debris cases, 247 high grass and weed cases, and 52 other cases, which again, I'll remind you can be anything from a building code violation, a property maintenance code violation. It's just a lot easier to put it under other, but if you want more specifics on that, I can grant that. The breakdown on how those cases have gone, 313 were completed and abated. 26 were voided, but in that 26, a lot of those have also been completed. I just do not know who the owner of the property is that completed that case. I went back and ran the numbers for this report, and I think we're about at, there's 5 left that I have in this 26 voided column that are still not abated. And so we'd have to go in and abate that ourselves if we're going to do that. But so that compliance rate is pretty good. 12 are still currently in court, and then 14 are open because it has not met the 20-day requirement before they can go in the court system. And then on the second page, that running total is continued. So since we've taken on code enforcement in 2021, 1,057 cases have been completed. 67 were voided, which again, I'll run that number for you in October of how many voided cases are still open so that you may have that. 18 are in the court, and then 14 from this month are still open because they haven't, 20 days has not passed. So with that, I will take any questions you have regarding code enforcement.
Questions on the monthly code enforcement report? If no questions, I'll receive your report and say thank you, sir.
Good job, Ben.
Moving right on. C, receive the Development Services Department report.
Okay, so this is Development Services Report. I do want to put a caveat in that building permits do not go by fiscal year. It's the only thing in my department that does not. And so you'll see this building permits 2024, when I give you the new homes demolition and other permits, you'll see that go all the way to December, and then I'll start it back over when we actually hit 2025. So I just want to caveat on there so that you're aware of that. So in the month of September, we issued the following permits. We've issued 10 building permits, 1 demolition, 3 electrical permits, and 6 plumbing permits. Within those building permits, 2 of them were new homes, and those 2 homes are not in the Cornerstone subdivision, so that's actually new housing in the city limits outside of that. In those 2 new homes, they're both roughly going to add an estimate of $550,000 in improvements. There was also an additional $97,630.50 that were invested in smaller projects, whether it was remodels, roofing, fencing, or demolition of other structures. And then staff held 2 development meetings this month with a property on the northeast side of town, which you have now seen. It's the Republic Ridge. With that, if you have any questions for Development Services, I'll be happy to answer that.
Questions over the development report? You said that was where? What did you?
I refer to it as the northeast side of town. because it's on the northern part of our city limits on the east side
Yeah,
of town.
we've started discussion on that, on dividing the town into planning
Well, and
quadrants, but you said we had to go before the,
I'll tell you that the county does that. The county will separate it from west and east, which I'm assuming that they will have to update soon with Cornerstone coming in. So I'm curious on how that will happen.
yeah, they weren't privy to our conversation, so I wanted to
Yeah.
include that.
This was at the last meeting, we discussed this, and
Yeah.
so that line is defined by the county, and then I will assume, this is an assumption, that that line will move once Cornerstone starts to develop out.
If no questions, I'll receive the development report, say thank you, sir.
Good job, Ben.
Thank you.
Action item D, consider to take any necessary action on a recommendation to city council for board appointments for unexpired terms that'll go through February of '27. Under your orange tab, you should have a scratch pad. And then the final submittal pad will be the one that has all three names. Was it under your folder, or was it in there, Joan? This page? Was it in your?
Yeah, it's under the orange tab.
Yeah. So this will be what we give to Shanna as we progress along. The other one is your scratch pad, basically.
There are 3 people?
Yes, you should have 3 people.
So this will be the form that we turn in.
Yes. Without the hole punch.
Yeah.
Oh,
Without
one's on the back of the other. No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Oh, the one that,
yeah. And so then, I wasn't given the names and everything. Did you want to,
Do you want to flip a coin, or who do you want to interview first? I understand we normally will ask the other party to wait in the conference room while
so that, yeah. But I still don't have their official names.
Robert is on the first page.
behind your orange cap.
You'll see their application.
Oh, there it is. If I get my fingernail off of it, I will probably be able to turn the page. And so it's done alphabetically? No, it's not even. Is there a Robert Slobel here? I know, I don't know, Robert. Yeah. Would you step to the podium, please, sir? And the other ones, we're gonna ask to step into the next room. Yeah. So, you want to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission, do you? Well,
Seems like a good idea.
I'm gonna go down the list, as is written for us. Are you a property owner within Rockdale, or do you live in Rockdale and are a qualified voter?
I am a property owner and a qualified voter.
Thank you, sir. How long have you lived in Rockdale?
Not quite 3 years.
Okay. Does the applicant have government experience?
Military experience, yes.
I just did what I told everybody not to do. Yay for me. Sorry about that. And thank you for his service. Has the applicant recently attended a city council or planning commission meeting?
Yes.
I know that you have. Yes.
I'm pretty regular.
you jumped down, huh?
What, huh?
You jumped down.
Oh, applicant have development experience. Do you have development experience?
Beginning to, I also serve on the MDD board, so I'm beginning to develop.
How about
But that's
planning?
in the last few months.
You serve on the MDD board?
Yes.
I think it was kind of rolling the two questions into one, the way you kind of did that. Do you have any planning experience?
Not specifically, no.
Other than attending our meetings?
Yes.
And say your involvement again with the community, just,
Well, being active, attending the meetings, getting involved in the MDD, having for a couple years supporting a small business here in Rockdale. My wife and her daughter have had a store which, though I'm not officially an owner, have been a major workforce.
And that was,
Hodgepodge, et cetera.
hodgepodge, et cetera. What is your willingness to be involved here? Can you be committed to the time that you have to apply to this?
Well, the good news about being retired is I have a fair amount of time, and I'm always, if I make a commitment, attempt to be very, very regular in attendance and other duties.
And you do realize that it could change, but currently we meet at 1:30 on Tuesday, first of the month and the third week of the month for workshop.
Yes, very much aware.
At this time, I'll open the floor for questions. Do you have any questions for Robert Bob?
I do. Do you still have your remodeling business?
We do not. And maybe that's one of the sidelights of how would be interested here is we did remodel 3 homes and had attempted to purchase 12 additional homes, but for a number of reasons, ownership issues and so on, we're unable to find a home that we could purchase. So I think part of that is planning and that experience would be helpful in planning and zoning.
That's why I asked. So what do you envision for Rockdale as far as growth and us being involved in that?
Well, I think the area is growing no matter what we want to do about it. My concern is that the growth is done intelligently and enough planning, and it actually would support Rockdale. I often say that my biggest concern is that Rockdale becomes a desert in the middle of an oasis. And I want to see the city itself thrive and grow. And so how all that works, and I think that's the important part. I mean, to get intelligent growth within the city limits and outside as well, because something's coming anyway, and it would be nice to make it comfortable, pleasant, and productive, and financially viable.
What are 3 current concerns you have with the city of Rockdale?
Apart from our experience in the retail business, a viability of retail, a viability for small business to grow. It doesn't feel like there's much available downtown. I'm very concerned about all the vacant buildings. The city itself, is a very varied city. You'll have nice sections and not so nice sections. I think you can drive down about almost any street, see wonderful houses and not so wonderful places. And so I think I'm very encouraged by the whole code enforcement, but I think it needs to be even more rigorous and more attention to detail. And certainly, as part of that, the streets and the water, the infrastructure is a major issue for the town.
Do you see any conflict being on this board and the MDD?
I wondered about that, and
Yes.
I had a long conversation with Jim Gibson about his thoughts about that, and I don't think there's a conflict. But what I think it could help in is in the meetings here, I can certainly reflect knowledge about what's going on with the MDD, which is also not only involved in the city stuff, but what's going on around us, what are prospects, and then the opposite would be true. In talking with the people at the MDD, I would certainly be pretty current about what's going on within the city. So I think I could serve both boards with extra knowledge in that area.
I did both for a period of time. It's, I mean, I think they kind of work hand in hand. I don't really think there's a conflict of interest, but I think that, like you said, you're gonna be, knowledgeable of what's possibly coming down the pipeline with the MDD versus, how do we need to prepare over here?
Right,
You know,
yeah,
planning and zoning.
obviously you have to be very cognizant of what happens in executive sessions and obviously not sharing that information outside.
So I certainly recognize you from several meetings, but question I have, you mentioned changing zoning and things like that and regulations. We're at a point now where there's so many things that have been, I don't want to say left alone for a long time. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with having to bring so many people back up to a regulation that you want to carry throughout the city?
Well, obviously with the whole parking thing that really blew up. And I mean, having been at the meeting where city council where that happened over a year ago and driving around town, I mean, I was certainly, part of our conversation anytime we drove in town was, well, that person's not going to be very happy. That person's not going to be very happy. I think one of the important things is broader communication. And I think there's going to also have to be some senses. We are moving into a broader area. And as the city grows, I think Rockdale has been very comfortable in parts of being this small, sort of unnoticed city. That the world has gone on, but nothing much happens here. And I don't think we can avoid unhappiness as the world grows and as the world becomes more and more present within the community. I think we have to be certainly understanding of how that works, do our best to mitigate it as much as possible, but on the other hand, not give in completely, because otherwise the danger is if you give in too much, then the town falls way behind. So I think that's the hard balance to reach. Keeping with progress, moving it along, encouraging people to come along, but not letting it overwhelm us as well. And in some sense, having to be pretty strong in the statement of, I know a lot of people aren't happy, but this has to happen. And whatever that particular part would be.
Thank you.
Probably should have set a timer for all this, but I appreciate your answers. Are there any other questions it's okay to call you Bob?
I prefer Bob.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good job, Bob.
So that brings us then, is there a marshal? Well, just bring whoever's left in there. Yeah.
Where's Ernest? Ernest might be in court.
I don't know. Did we get any communications from any of the applicants?
He didn't respond back to me when I sent the reminder.
Okay,
He didn't come last time.
Yeah, he did the same thing last time.
okay. Sorry, we're trying to figure out where we're at on all this.
Not a problem.
Please
Not a
tell
problem.
us who you are, sir.
Hi, my name's Marshall Bellows. First of all, I'd like to thank y'all for taking the time to see me. My wife and I moved here approximately 4 years ago, this month actually. We bought a home here. We moved here because we believed in Rockdale. We believed in the future here. We're transplants from Austin, Texas, so we're one of those people.
Wait
But,
a minute, we're gonna allow him to keep talking. He's from Austin.
I completely understand, but we did. We're both from small towns. I've lived in places like Lake Dallas and Justin, Texas, and if y'all know where those are at. My wife is from Louisville, Texas, so Austin outgrew us, and we wanted to find the greatest opportunity for us, so that was here in Rockdale.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Do you have any government experience?
Government experience? No, sir, I don't. I do come from a military background, military family. My biological father was a political science professor at UTSA before he passed away. So I've been exposed to politics, I guess, from an early age in a novice sense, but I have not held any public office or have I held any council board.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Does the applicant have planning experience?
I have been involved in facility maintenance as far as plotting or anything like that. In Austin, Texas, I was in charge of a commercial facility in downtown Austin, Texas, a fitness center. So I was in constant contact with city code enforcement. I was in constant contact with state code enforcement, depending on what I was dealing with. I dealt with wet areas, saunas, a lot of health-related things I've dealt. So, I mean, I would have the health board come in and check out things, and I'd also have the city come in and check out my roof and my drainage and my HVAC systems. So I am familiar with compliance. I am familiar with adhering to code enforcement and somewhat having to interpret that.
Bless you.
You do have property within Rockdale and you are a qualified voter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I did an assumption. I had to go back and correct that.
Not a problem.
So in your bio, you said something about seeing Rockdale as a thriving community? Is that a?
Well, I definitely
No,
see the
I'm sorry,
possibility.
I turned the page again on myself. I thought you were the mini homes, but hang on.
Not a problem.
Community.
Yeah, positive.
I definitely see it as a possibility. Again, I've come from many small towns. If any of y'all know where Port Lavaca is, I spent a few years of high school there. I've also spent a little under a year working out of the factories there. And I see the void here and the necessity, and I see the opportunity. And I see people moving in to replace that opportunity that's left. And that's what I see the possibility of. I also see the possibility where I have held a few part-time jobs here where there is an interest. I've gotten a few of our young men involved in fitness. I've been a children's martial arts instructor, held my seconds license. So creating that kind of positivity, I think there is a possibility here. We're a blank slate. And what we create from here is going to be up to us. It's no longer about who left us. It's about who's here and what we're going to do with it.
Tell me about the micro homes or the mini homes or what's your involvement?
Oh, the micro homes. Well, the first year I was here, it was obviously a lot was shut down, so I was stuck at home for quite a bit of time. I have lived on farms, so I raise chickens. I grow a lot of my own food. The first year I was here, I bought a hoop house and grew $10,000 worth of produce. So I still continue to do that. I grow a lot of my own herbs. I ate an omelet made from my own chickens today. I pick my own tomatoes every year. I plant my own potatoes from ones I buy at Walmart when they sprout. So I believe in a lot in self-sufficiency. A lot of that also goes into a lot of self-education. I mean, a lot of the chemistry I used in my pool and my facilities, I can literally apply the acidic and alkaline basis to my soil to the crops I grow. So that is a hobby of mine. I've brought back 2 rose bushes on my property that are probably 80 years old that haven't bloomed since God knows when. So, You know, to me, that's fascinating. And
Micro homesteading is not talking about micro, the little
yeah,
houses.
Yeah.
not tiny homes.
It actually is to do with agricultural development.
It's like a little farm, a little produce, a little basically a little self-sufficiency, you know. If you can challenge yourself to produce enough protein for your family for 1 week, I would do that. You know, whether that's hunting, picking it, or growing it, you know, it's, people are really disconnected from that in their life.
As relating to planning and zoning, do you have any development experience?
No, sir. Other than, like I said, dealing with code enforcement, state and city. And my stepfather was a tile setter, so, I mean, I've worked on the Ingleside Naval Base. I've worked on banks in Port Lavaca and Houston. I passed by the buildings knowing I helped build those. That's about the closest I could say to development.
Have you attended a city council or planning commission meeting?
No, sir. I've watched quite a few, but I have not attended one. This is my first time here other than walking into the front lobby.
Say you watched some few?
I've watched a few, especially, I mean, of course, you know, not to point the elephant in the room, but people have been upset with some of the new policies, so I clued in on YouTube and just
Tune in.
yeah, try to put my finger on the pulse and see how people are feeling other than the ones I talk to.
You said you were involved with fitness and a few other things, but
Yes, sir.
what is your community involvement?
As of right now, like I said, I've worked for Tractor Supply and Walmart. And again, I've had to deal with some family estate issues for the past year. So right now what I'm trying to do is, because I am a trainer, I am a nutrition coach, I'm starting up a new fitness camp. I'm trying to get part-time employment. I like to dictate my own schedule. That's one of the reasons I'm applying for this, because I have the ability to dictate my own schedule. I have been involved with teaching children's martial arts here for a short period of time, for about a year at Master Martial Arts. Fantastic place. And I was a student and assisted him for a while until I had to divert my responsibilities otherwise. This is really kind of my first official step into community service, and I have the ability to do it. I have 2 young sons. I have 2 young grandchildren, and it's time for somebody to step up here. You know, all of y'all have decided it's time to step up, and that's what I want to do too. This is my home now.
Well, I don't
Yes.
want to discourage you anyway.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for doing this.
I'm just passionate. I'm sorry, sir.
And you realize we meet at 1:30 on the first and third Tuesdays of the month.
Very well.
And it may move as we get different people in. Sometimes we vote for the most convenient time, but
Yes, sir.
is your schedule flexible enough for you
It
to
is.
attend?
It is.
Okay.
That's the great thing about personal training. You sometimes get to set your own schedule and leave the holes open that you need to.
All right. Questions from the floor?
So would you elaborate a bit on what you consider the void for this, I guess you were saying for the city of Rockdale, and what you consider as the opportunity?
The void, I do not see, so coming from the fitness industry, I don't have the files, but I could provide report after report from the federal level to the local level, how built fitness facilities, how green areas, again, I came from Austin, where at a point I literally lived running on the trails every day. So these things promote not only commerce, they promote family activities, they promote positivity. I've seen neighborhoods turn around. I can provide report after report just by providing those. We have a void here. So if me and my wife, again, if I wanted to go bowling, something silly like that, there is a void here in that sense. If me and my wife want to do what we used to do, where we run on the trails and then go have a taco afterwards, there's not that opportunity here. If any of y'all have ever gone to downtown Austin, maybe not now, but previously, and saw sort of the vibrance and the life, the family orientation, the group orientation down there, we do not have that here. We don't have meetings, places for communities to actually come together. And I feel like we're really separated in a lot of ways. There's great parks here. There's great ability here. one of the silliest things that I'm really pushing for is a Frisbee golf course. It sounds silly, but there's so much that can be attached to that. But it provides a positive activity that you don't have to pay $50 a person to go to, that the whole family can come out. That's the void that we have. We're growing to the point where we're not a company town anymore. We're a community. We're here for our citizens, and we need to start providing for our citizens. And that's what I'd like to see. The opportunity for that. I'd like to see the opportunity for citizens to put in their own businesses, to meet in the park. You know, I know we're pushing really hard for the food truck. I have culinary experiences. I've trained under one of the top 10 chefs in America from 2000. I think that's a fantastic idea, and there's a lot of ways, and we have a lot of space to promote this and bring people here for that. And I think that I have a lot of good ideas and maybe some background that can offer that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? Are we gonna allow him to go back into the room, or does he need to leave, or
Whatever you
we need to discuss another candidate that's not here, so I don't know.
I'm amenable. I can go back there. Yes, sir.
I have one other question, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what attracted you to Rockdale? Why'd you relocate here?
Honestly, well, at the time, again, this was 2020. First of all, is the possibility Bitcoin. I mean, I've dabbled, I've traded a little bit, made a little coin, lost a little coin, but that area is not going to go unutilized. Regardless, it's not going to go unutilized. We wanted property, we wanted a certain size of property, and we didn't want to pay Austin prices for that property. And, you know, it was between here and College Station. My wife works remotely, but she does drive in to, I guess you would call it Round Rock, a couple times a week, which is acceptable. So we wanted out of that, and we wanted someplace we thought was going to thrive. And literally, it was between the area between Taylor and College Station. I mean, it's. I do a lot of reading. I keep my finger on the pulse.
Thank you.
And you go by Marshall?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, Marshall.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know Ernest, but he haven't showed up to either meeting.
Well, hang on. As long as the candidate's in here,
I thought he was done. You just brung him up.
no,
I could have sworn you just dismissed him. You brung him up.
I know y'all need to leave it. I know y'all need to leave at 2:30, but
No,
hang on. Somebody, who had to leave?
I'm the 2:30, but I'm not leaving yet.
I appreciate that more than you know, sir. Okay, so somebody want to represent Ernest?
I just know he's applied before, and we've never met him. He's been here for part of the interview, as far as I know.
Talk about these two at this point.
As far as I'm concerned, I have my candidate. I'm ready to submit my papers in.
Are we submitting?
There's two of them.
It's not one, it's two.
There's two.
Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
We have two vacancies.
Two vacancies.
Two vacancies.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be recommending two candidates to council.
What do you do if you don't feel comfortable? I mean, what if?
You don't have, you can recommend one, you can recommend zero. Council has asked to give you opportunity to recommend. They can actually take your recommendation, or they can recommend
Sure.
somebody else.
Were we gonna let Shanna have the papers and she'd do a total, or did you want us to?
Just verbal.
It's a non-vote,
Do you
really,
need a
if you
count of
need
these?
two, unless you have enough people not recommending one person.
Would
Wouldn't it
anybody,
just be a yes and no on everybody's vote?
would anybody recommend contacting this attorney and see if there's a time he could attend? But if you can't make it at 1:30.
I mean, I think if you say we've done this 2 or 3 times, and
He hadn't been here. I don't
Yeah,
think
let's
he's-
do that I know of.
He did it to MDD also, I believe.
Really?
Oh, did he?
I
Okay,
think
got it.
that- Yeah.
Never mind.
you gotta watch attorneys.
We're still in session.
Mr. Chairman.
Tim, help me out here, sir. What is the desire of your heart from this meeting?
Trying to tell us.
Can we vote on it, or what we doing right now?
I guess my question is that when you say that there's desire not to nominate,
I said that.
Oh,
I said that.
was it, what, you concerned about one of the?
Well, I'm not big on, if you got two, you just go with the two that you got. To me, I'm a little more of I think there's one candidate that I would be for. There's another one that I would not be as much for, but I'm just one person. But I don't think you have to take the two that just show up.
Absolutely.
I feel the same way.
I think we go through this every single time.
Well, that's why we went to this matrix deal where
know.
we could have a solid number, but we never did it on two candidates with only two applications.
Do we need like a motion, or how do we do this
This-
officially?
This is all live.
Oh, I tell you what,
Mind y'all.
This is supposed to be in an open session, so
yeah,
I excuse them because we had a third candidate that wasn't really going to talk about.
right.
So if when they come back in, if you want to make a motion to appoint one, you can make that motion. Take a vote. If you want to nominate the second one, you can make a motion and nominate the second one.
I want to do it legal.
Well, I'm here for your clarification of what we did last time. If you don't want to go that way, you don't have to. But if you want to submit your sheets, and then we'll compile those numbers and send it back to the planning commission so that you know what your numbers are. And then, make that recommendation at the next meeting. I don't know how fast you want to fill the seats. The faster you fill the seats, the more chance you're going to make a quorum. To be honest with
That's
you.
my
But,
concern right
You
there.
don't want to rush to
But
get
you're
a
gonna have a
commissioner.
score on two. I mean,
But you can set that score, so if y'all score one of them low, then you know that maybe that wasn't that great of a candidate, and you can go out for another one. Or if if your scores came out pretty high, then it would appear that you're in favor for them to be on that board. That's what we did last time. We can do it a different way if you want.
Do it with them sitting.
But last time you all submitted your sheets individually. Shanna was kind enough to compile them, and then we gave you an average of what y'all scored each candidate, and then that recommendation went into the council packet.
And I see,
You did not take a vote last time.
no, this was a newly
it.
created matrix, and I see that we should have put a minimal 60% out of 100. We never, this is new. We
Yeah,
just
well,
did this
and-
one time before.
I will mention, if you want to set that parameter of what that average score should be for y'all to be in favor of recommendation, that may be a good idea, so that way you don't.
We wouldn't
in
do
these
it here,
instances
we
where
would
you
do it
get,
as a workshop.
I would say do it here, so when we compile your list, we'll know if that hits your number of that threshold that you wanted or not. The reason I say that is because this is the first time we've had 2 and 2 that are
Yes.
filling the board, but Commissioner Woolley brings up a good point. If you get an applicant that may not fit that board very well, you should set a bottom line number of, if they are below this number, we would not recommend them to be on the board, but if they're above that number, then you would naturally recommend them to be on the board.
Joan, on 100 total, what would be your minimal?
I'm not-
Think about that. Daniel, on 100 total, what would be your minimal qualification?
maybe I was a little harsh, but the one I want was at 62. The other one is not,
Jason,
is below that.
I would say 60.
Charlie,
60 or 70.
and I would,
that's
for
right.
y'all's
Okay, so
knowledge, I was
I'm
at
not
60.
that
A minimum would be 60, but
So everybody's going to score different
Yeah.
also. So you might have somebody that scores all the candidates in between 80 and 100, and somebody
Yeah,
that's more
average.
critical that may like a candidate that scores the high candidate at 60. So having a threshold like that, I mean, it really is a matter of, you have your matrix and your own score, and at the bottom line is, yes, you endorse the candidate, or no, you don't endorse the candidate. And then we can take a poll. I mean, when we have all the sheets, you're gonna have 5 sheets. You're either gonna have majority of the people, or you're not, as far as a recommendation. Even though you're not voting on it publicly, you fill out your score sheet, and at the bottom, based on your own personal score, you're gonna either endorse the candidate or not endorse the candidate.
Question. With the shortage of seats and even more of a shortage possibly coming soon, how do you go about with that? do you hold another meeting and try to reach out to more to get them to come? Or, I mean, you just go without candidates if nobody's showing up?
Well, and the other fact is, last time we filled, I think, an EDC board, the same candidates came and addressed city council. And so, you know, if the third candidate comes and addresses city council and council, you know, has what you guys have done as far as endorsement or non-endorsement, they'll take that into consideration and then they will vote. Or is it the mayor? The mayor actually, according to the charter, the mayor actually makes the appointment with the concurrence of the rest of the council.
All right, so do I need a motion from the floor to turn in our sheets, or,
You can just turn in, you don't need any kind of motion.
okay.
I do ask that you go ahead and score them on your thing, and then at the bottom, you know, write endorsement or not endorsement. Yeah, fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact, like I say, your score, everybody can score theirs differently.
Oh, no, you figured. I scored them 1 through 10 on all of them. How do you like the other ones get bigger?
Yeah, that's how I did originally. I had to go back and,
I mean, one of the things that you can also ask yourselves is, before you got on this board, how would you have scored yourself?
100.
There. There's not that many points on here, is it?
I like that one. Charles, how would you have scored yourself?
1,000.
Touchdown, he'd have said, touchdown.
And yes,
No.
I write.
You'll write your name on it.
Yes, I write like a young child, so just, you're gonna have to work with that.
You're on par with me.
Okay.
So what do you think? What do you think? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and ask him to come back in, is that right, Zach?
Yes. With apologies for keeping him so long by himself in a locked room.
You know what the code is to the door?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you'll lock him in there now.
Well, there's another escape avenue through his office.
Shanna,
They were locked.
Shanna, are you in charge for buying these?
Yes,
Amazon?
yep,
Okay.
do you need the link?
If you can, yes, if you can send it to me. They've been looking for something they can put their own stickers on.
Thank y'all for coming today. We really enjoyed talking to you and hearing from you.
Reason for the moment of awkward silence is we're tallying up votes. Or do you need some more time? Have you?
he doesn't have all of them. Charles still has his.
Thought it was going to.
Yeah, I thought we was waiting. I thought it had to go to council for approval.
Okay. Well, we don't know yet. You can stick around, but we're gonna send to council the results. And it'll be at the next city council meeting, which will be next Monday. Do you wanna announce it now to us, or do you want to wait till Monday city council meeting?
Monday, city council.
Okay. See you Monday.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all
5:30,
coming
same
in.
place.
We'll find it.
Okay, having done that, then I have no further items on the agenda. I will call 254 as a close of this meeting.